This is a couple of baby hats made to test out this ribber bed. We're using my ribber carriage and my main bed and carriage. It's just that this ribber has just come out of its deep soak and we need to know it's working great, which it is. But I'll show you what we're looking at. The reason this one looks bumpy is that I'm showing you the main bed size, and this is the other side of the fabric where I've experimented with tuck stitch on the ribber so as to test out all of the faculties. Let's do one together. What we're going to do is make our zigzag row with N, 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 and stitch size 1 on both beds. Should make a pretty zigzag row going across. My tension's a little tight because it pulled up, so I'll pull these down. Hang the comb up from the bottom. There it comes. And insert this wire. This wire's in pretty good condition, so this should go smoothly. There it goes. I reach for my ribber weights. I'm going to use 2 because of the expanse that I'm using. For our circular rows, I'm going to put the left part button on the main bed and the right part button on the ribber. I'm leaving the stitch size the same because on this machine I like the circular rows to be tight. So what we should get is it knits to the right on the ribber. And it did. Got a needle I should be replacing, but I'm going to try to wing it for this.
Go.
Now we go back to normal knitting. Did you see the part button pop out?
Mm-hmm.
And in, knit back. This row's still tight. And after that, I'm going to raise the stitch size to 3/3. I'm using a light worsted, and I'm going to knit the whole hat. So that's what I think is going to work well. Now, 12 rows of ribbing, just normal in ribbing. Nice job, machine. Very nice and smooth. Now let's look over here. If we go to PR and change to P over here, this bed, the ribber bed, should tuck going left and then knit on both beds going right. On the main bed, it's going to knit every row. So we'll be getting half fisherman's rib, but it's going to be tucking to the left.
And the right button stays in the same spot.
That's right.
Okay. Otherwise,
it won't knit off at all. Let's do 12 rows like that. Tuck, knit, tuck, knit. Oh, my naughty needle's misbehaving. Let me get this to knit off. 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now we're going to swap the 2 buttons in PR. We'll get the same stitch, but this time the ribber should knit going to the left and tuck going to the right. And that's why there were some stripes on the samples, because that's what it was doing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's stop and have a look. Yep, tucking going right. Should knit this row. 5, 6, 7. I see ya. 8, 9. I really must replace the needle. I tried a quick fix, filing off a little bit of unevenness. Didn't work.
And they always do it in the middle of a project.
That's an accident, but it didn't do any harm. Now let's go back to in on both buttons here, and we'll knit 12 plain old ribbing rows. And once we do that, I just have to gather off the top, and that's how I got the hat. I am not worried about the naughty needle in here ruining the test, because I know there's a needle with a little bit of rust on it, and nothing has failed on the river. Was that 4 or 6?
Uh-oh.
It doesn't matter that much. I'll err on the side of conservative. And now if I just break myself a yarn tail, thread this into a yarn needle, I can go whoop, 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 pick each of those up and gather it, and that's how we got the hat. So River, you passed the test. You can go home. Here's the hat we just knitted. It's gathered but not seamed yet. You've got left and right edges, but you can see what we got. And now, I've done this already on fabric, but of course, you would need to know, if you're testing the river, you need to know that they'll knit back from whole. The needles will, if it's in that position. And you can see they would. Let's do it from the other side. You also need to know that they won't knit back from whole if you set the carriage like that to the one. Because if they're dirty sometimes, these things don't work correctly. There it is on one. Yay. Let's do it one more time. Back to 2. They should knit. And ordinarily I would want to know it does it with fabric, but I already do know that because I made other swatches. Beautiful.
This is Rita's 93E Garter carriage. This is part of the Machine Rescue group. This is her power cord and her machine with a used motor and a deep cleaning, and it seems to be doing just fine. We've done a little over 100 rows with it now.
Not one mess up. And I thought it was interesting to note, you probably can't tell in that picture, but this is not a single strand of fingering weight yarn. It's 2 strands of lightweight industrial yarn run together as one, which adds just a bit of challenge. It hasn't given any trouble though.
And it's using card number 1.
Yeah. A good old basic seed stitch pattern so we can spot errors if any occur. But none have.
And you're going to see that card a lot more. Okay, this is Nancy's KG93. It's got a deep soak. It is using her power cord, and it is humming along nicely, and it is coming to the end of its 100 rows. So this will be another one for the box.
This one is still using that doubled industrial yarn, which is a bit challenging, or so I would have thought, but it's just working like gangbusters. And if we keep testing these carriages, I'm going to have a nice long mini seed stitch scarf.
There you go. And this is, again, part of our machine rescue trip.
Yep. They are fun to watch.
All right, this is Rita's Omni, and it is counting down the last of its 200 rows. This is really quite a work here. I'm always saying, if it doesn't work, do what you can, then whatever happens, put the pieces in the box and send them to me. Well, she put a lot of pieces in the box and sent them to me. So here it is, counting down the last of its 200 rows. And what I did was I've been running it on a card and every other needle card, and now I'm just running it on every needle. I've removed the card just to see it works through its paces. And there it goes, humming along nicely and ready to go home. All right, this is Nancy's number 4 Knit King Omni. This came in and it had possible water damage. it had serious water damage. It was wire brushed, brass brushed, and put into the deep soak for 2 weeks. It was brought out, it was brass brushed again. It was completely washed down in LPS1 because it is a moisture remover and normally stops the inhibition of oxidation, or it performs an inhibition to oxidation by stopping it. It chugged along soulfully for a little while, and then it kept slowing down. I pulled it apart, I lubricated the motor. It would run again nicely, and then it would bog down again. So we finally had to change the motor to a used motor that I knew was good. The poor row counter was completely frozen up. I freed it and lubricated it and even deep soaked the row counter. It was no help, so we had to replace that. There was corrosion on the needle guide swing down door that you pull down, and it distorted the metal, and I was afraid to try and flex it back for fear that it would break it out of its housing. So we replaced that. But here we are, chugging along. It's done 80 of its 150 rows. It's running a one-on-one card right now, and it is producing some really nice fabric, and you can hear it's not having any trouble at all. When I test these, I run them on a controlled power outlet so I can read the voltage drop for the length of time that the carriage has run. With the motor that came with it, even after cleaning and lubrication with that motor, I could watch the voltage drop after just a few minutes of it running. Now it's done nearly 100 rows, and I have a 2-volt drop on my power source, which is really good for one of these Garter carriages. So, Nancy, I'm thinking that your Omni is ready to come home. It's going to be a very expensive repair. We'll talk about that when we get together. All right, here is the last countdown on our Omni. It's going to go down and make a turnaround and then come back and stop. And you can see the nice, pretty fabric that we've got out of it. What I've done is taken the card out. Let's watch this turnaround. Should be coming up. Oh, that was smooth. What I've done is taken the card out so that it's a different knitting pattern from using a pattern, because I like to see that it does both ways. And now we'll get the sound of it doing the same function on every needle. I feel like the drive is working a little harder when it does this rather than changing up between needles. And you hear it's very steady, very consistent. It's not the fastest carriage that we've gotten, but it's really nice and smooth. It runs very quiet. It's got a nice strong pull to it. And here we're coming up to the last turnaround, and it should stop if the row counter is working properly.